Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay. Welcome back to the Shadowlands Alpha First Pass coverage. This is going to be the... So how is it? How's it shaping up? How is it toteming up? How's it dropping totems? How is it making socks wet? How's it putting sauce on things, throwing meatballs, making chain lightning stew? Whatever. I don't know, this is the Shaman sort of roundup video. A couple of things have popped up, of course, over the past couple of days during testing, and I put it to some B-roll footage. You are seeing the new vampire dungeon. In the background here, I'm playing Enhancement, and rather poorly. There's some weird things, and the spec just... Wordup and I were playing two different builds, and I think what he had come to understand and get to grips on is definitely probably the more prominent, stable, workable build right now. I was doing some weird stuff with Totem Mastery and trying to make crashing lightning work and doing all this, like trying to do AoE things. I don't know. Also, Sundering is just busted right now on the alpha and it does way too much damage. But we were trying things. We were comparing notes, looking over logs. He logged the whole thing so we could look at what kind of damage we're doing per bosses and for trash packs and that kind of stuff. So it was just fun, but that's the background footage you're seeing here. Of course, it's just going to be used to, I can talk over it and go over all of Shamans in total. And just a friendly nudge. I do all this testing over on Twitch, but all of my relevant social medias are in the description box right here on YouTube, where you're currently listening to this video or watching the background footage while listening to this video, whatever you're doing right now. So all my things are there, my Facebook, Twitter, the Twitch channel, my Instagram, if you feel so inclined. I have a Patreon page that is primarily used with a bunch of extra stuff from my actual live show podcast, which is currently on hold for testing right now. But there are still a bunch of things. It's almost like we have like 80 more podcasts that are on there. So if you want to support what I do directly, there's also some art coming out right now. We do big wallpaper key art for the end of expansion bosses, or end of dungeon, end of raid bosses rather. So we've got one coming out soon for N'Zoth. And we might even go back and make some more for previous ones, just for more stuff for patrons that are supporting what I do directly. A lot of the art assets for the show, that's where the budget comes from. So the more I have that I can do there, I can do shirts and things. I can make emotes and stuff. I do a lot of the emote heads, the kind of stylized cartoon heads for a lot of long-time friends of the show. And of course, for promo art and things, that all comes from that support. So check those links down below if you're wondering where else you can find me on the internet. But without further ado, Shaman stuff. The first thing I want to bring up, I have all these notes in front of me that I'm still going to kind of thumb through to make sure where I'm going with things. But again, it's kind of like just a stream of consciousness. Is they brought back Flame Tongue Weapon, which we did find out after talking to Wordup today that double Windfury for enhancement probably isn't a thing, because I didn't notice this during testing, but if you actually enchant double Windfury weapon, every Windfury proc is cut in half. So it's not the offhand shenanigans, it's just that if you have two, it's half damage, but it procs more often, so it syncs up better with things. So for like AoE situations, right? There is some potential where it could be good to splash it on, because it obviously it will do less per hit, but you could stack Forceful Winds faster, or potentially gain more Windfury attacks, which are coded as special attacks, which allow you to get more Stormbringers faster, or more procs, more resets, so you can actually crash lightning more for AoE. So there could still be something there, but it might even be just like make a macro for it, case-by-case basis. Also right now, enchants for weapons and poisons are totally breaking whenever you zone in to something or die. You have to reapply them every single time, so it's very annoying. You might see even some of that footage in the background here where I'm going to cut out like all the deaths mostly and just kind of skip past those. We did die a lot to the second boss because he is very overtuned right now. He has abilities that hit for literally almost all of our health pool. A little bit crazy. We might be doing the boss wrong or something, but I'll probably put a wipe or two, and then I'll just cut to the kill. But there's potential there for Windfury, but I think it might be Windfury Flame Tongue all the time. What I've also didn't know is that Flame Tongue now hits on every single attack you do. So I was getting like a walk up to mob, hit Storm Strike, get double Windfury procs off both weapons, and a Flame Tongue hits for every single one of them, which it's light damage. It's not like it's anything, oh, but I think Wordup said over the course of the entire dungeon, or like on average, it was between 6 to 8% of his overall damage done. And it's this passive. It's a little less than Windfury, of course, but it's there. But that whole tirade about Flame Tongue weapon coming back, and of course Windfury imbues, is that Flame Tongue and Windfury really don't... Flame Tongue itself doesn't really do anything for Restoration Shaman or Elemental Shaman. And was wondering if there was going to be any update to those, and the feeling that those are there just to be there is a little bit shrug. Because there was Resto Shamans in chat the last couple of days asking, where's Earth Living Weapon? And I don't know if it's thematic, right? But if it came back, if Earth Living Weapon came back and was just the... Basically, it procced for like a tiny hot, right? It was like a Spring Blossoms talent from the Druid kit, but on, you know, a single target. It was like a little tiny Riptide. Is that something that matters to Resto Shamans? Because you don't really see it on your weapon, right? I don't know... But it's actually gameplay impactful. I was surprised the version of Flame Tongue came back with no, you know, spell damage modifier, or no spell crit, like a 1 or 2% spell crit chance or something. It's probably really actually high. But I don't know. Those coming back, the imbues is a strange one because it just feels like they're just kind of there to be like, here's flavor, right? Like Primal Strike being black. It's like, you had it when you were younger, now you have it now. It's like the stuffed animal in your closet. You're just like, I should probably throw this away, but Mr. Snuffies, whatever you got, right? Everyone's got that thing that they've got that they, I should throw that away, but it's kind of like Primal Strike, I guess. So that one came up for sure. Obviously, there was Manatide Totem Madness, and there was some misinformation. It does not take into account Manatide itself on Restoration Shaman specifically, because that's where it comes from. Does not take into account the Water Shield mana regeneration. I did get a little confused with the numbers there when I was recording, so thank you for correcting me, of course. But it's base mana regeneration, and it is a multiplicative curve. So it doubles every previous one. So say you start out at 400 mana regeneration and drop one Manatide Totem, you go to 800. You drop a second Manatide Totem at the same time, you go to 1600. For some reason, if you have 4 Restoration Shamans in a group, you would go to 3200. I don't know if that's supposed to happen or if it's supposed to just add your base on. So it would go like 4, 8, 12, 16 instead and slow down the scaling a little bit. It is really stupid. If you watch the Restoration Shaman video, there's a clip that I have in the description box of us filling up a Arcane Mage's mana bar during evocation in 2 seconds from empty, because they get 750% more, you know, base mana regeneration per pulse, and if you double that, it's a lot of mana regeneration. And I don't know if that's supposed to be a thing. I just got done recording a video for Rogue for Assassination, and I was sort of talking about how Blizzard seems to not want to just put a buff on every single person, right? Everyone doesn't get a Battle Shout or an Int or a Prayer of Fortitude or a Chaos Brand or whatever. I think they're trying to put something unique because they keep hearing all the, oh, homogenization this and no homogenization that. No, he has that. No, blah, blah. So Warriors, like, they have Battle Shout and they have their AoE Commanding Shout. For the HP, they also have their, at least Prot Warrior has their Challenging Shout back, their AoE Taunt. Super long, ridiculous cooldown or something, though, but like they're shouty boys, right? And even their anima powers are all about shouting a lot, and shouting has lower cooldowns and this and that and the other thing. So I think Blizzard is trying to put something on every class or potentially underrepresented spec, Windfury Totem looking at you, or Manatide Totem looking at you, to do something in that vein that you don't need all of those things all the time. In Mythic Rating, you're going to. I'm actually going to make another video on this down the road about what I think are all the mandatory, you're going to have this, that, and that. I think it's 12 or 13 classes and or specs out of 20 that you'll need to have it in Mythic Raid, which kind of rosterizes Mythic Rating. But that's a lot of numbers, but I think that's what Blizzard's plan is. Even though Restoration Shaman didn't really need more tools in Mana Tide Totem or things of that nature, they needed damage. Their Lava Burst still hits harder than Elemental Shamans because they only get to attack, spell-wise so often. But they have Searing Totem now, which literally, it's actually laughable. So the footage you're watching in the background, Wordup and I are both running Searing Assault. Because it's like the only talent on that road that actually does anything. At least does anything that actually makes sense. Over the course of the entire dungeon, my Searing Totem, over the whole dungeon, did 1.6% of my damage. Numbers are numbers, but that is why even hit that button. Because if you break it down to each individual instance of casting it or each individual boss, it's such a infinitely small, tiny piece that why? Why is it there? If it was something a little bit more like, whoa, so like, Lava Burp Totem, right? That Elemental Shamans have, it may make a little more sense. Because it actually has an impactful moment when you cast it. It has a little bit of that ricochet AoE going on. And it feels like I cast this spell and things happen. You cast Searing Totem and it's just... I don't know. But in that regard, Mana Tide Totem for Restoration Shaman, Windfury Totem for Enhancement Shaman, and Elemental just gets Echoing Shock, which if you didn't watch the Elemental Shaman video yet, I don't know, just... How would you like to turn 5 Chain Lightnings into 25 Chain Lightnings? Well, that video shows you how. Echoing Shock is real fun, which, I don't know. I mean, maybe I just play Elemental the entirety of Shadowlands because they've got some fun stuff going on. And Enhancement's looking like a Jackson Pollock painting. Or a cake that has all the ingredients in the cake tin ready to go in the oven, but there's no eggs. There's no binding agent. There's no emulsifications gonna happen. There's no that final piece of the puzzle. It's gonna be like just weird chocolatey or vanilla-y sugar gunk when it comes out, right? But it won't be a fully baked cake. So there's something there, but it's not there yet. And speaking of Windfury Totem, get this. We were doing testing, and we read the tooltip. You read the actual tooltip for Windfury Totem, and it says party members. We're like, all right, so the Shaman, because the actual casting Shaman does get the benefit of it as well, on top of their more special attack, amped Windfury weapon. But Windfury Totem is actually working in raids. So it is not a party only. It is not the Shaman +4. It is potentially the entire raid within 12 yards. That's probably why it's a tiny range. It is going to be huge if it works that way. It's only going to affect a couple more people, right? Like, it'll affect your Holy Paladins whacking away or something like that. Or it might affect your tanks, which tanks helpful. Especially, say, Warrior, for example. They get rage from auto attacks. So we did confirm rage from auto attacks is a thing. Windfury Totem does not affect pets. It does not affect ranged hunters. It affects only auto attack bonk bonks. It will obviously be a little more huge for the two-hander melee classes. Retribution Paladins, Arms Warriors, Looking at You, Unholy DKs. Frost two-hander, unless they change something, you're just losing a weapon enchant to use a two-hander. So why? Who knows? I'm not sure if that's going to change anything. It's kind of just like a silly thing that you can do, to be honest. But I do not think they are going to two-hand Frost. I just don't think it's a real thing. Additionally here, let me scroll through my notes right now. The big thing about... someone said in the comments of the day about Surge of Earth for Restoration Shaman, their new non-target needing, LOS requiring heal that eats up some Earth Shield charges and AoE heals around the tank in this case. It's kind of like a pseudo little beacon of light in a way. Maybe it's more like one of the other beacons that I can't remember all the name of because I haven't played Paladin in so long, but it is something like there. It's a little bit neat. It could be neat for, I put it in my notes for the rest of the show, and then it could be neat with like a Cloudburst Wellspring combination where you would be able to Surge of Earth into a Cloudburst Totem followed by a Wellspring, and then you'd pop the Cloudburst Totem. It has some neat little like combo-y healing potential there, but that's maybe a very numbers thing, and obviously it's probably more of a 5-man thing because you have to be within nearby 8 yards of the earth shielded tank in this regard to actually receive the heal. But currently it wasn't going into Cloudburst Totem, so we couldn't really look at that very much. Other things too, as I sort of rattle on through my notes here, a lot of my testing, of course, I did a 2-part series with Enhancement, and the weirdest stuff was mostly that it's too many buttons, man. And it felt like, not necessarily, I mean, the opening blue post talks about how, and I read the whole damn thing, right? That's like the kind of clickbait title that we did, the Bay Talks About Searing Totem video, which is just me for like 2 hours on stream going through the first post that came out for the alpha. And that's a lot of my original thoughts are there. I don't think some of them have changed, but there is something that feels like they did just slap in a whole bunch of stuff, and then hopefully they adjust and fine-tune that stuff, right? Don't just leave all the paint on the canvas. You need to form it into something that we can pay attention to what the heck it is, or otherwise it just turns into, you know, brown or gray brown mush. Because there's potential there, but so many of the builds just don't do anything. Because in a real situation, you're not going to juggle 9 different buttons and 3 different micro cooldowns, and it's not realistic. It's not feasible. And also, it might not be very fun. So things like Feral Spirits baseline, doing nothing. Ascendance, doing something on cast. Wordup had a good point about it. It actually does kind of something. I refute the fact it's weird, right? It's just me kind of being stubborn. It quote-unquote resets Stormstrike, but Stormstrike is not there anymore, and if you use Stormstrike and then Ascend, it just gives you a new spell called Windstrike, which is not on cooldown because it didn't exist beforehand, so you hit Windstrike, and you saw auto-attacking from ranged, sure. But it automatically eats up part of the actual duration of the spell, and because obviously Stormbringer procs are RNG, you could get just X amount of Windstrikes, or you can hit Windstrike and Railgun every single global cooldown until Ascendance falls off. Which is maybe why it's so hard for them to balance Ascendance, because of the random nature of it, and of course the ranged nature of it. But Survival Hunters have a ranged stance, and they're, Way of the Hawk or Aspect of the Hawk or whatever. And that maybe isn't as interactive, but you can just spam abilities in that thing, because you already got other things that are ranged, and it's a 2-minute cooldown if I don't recall. But it's just the argument that the core rotation has no cooldown that does anything that interacts with the rotations that you're doing regardless anymore anyway. And like, say I just did Assassination Rogue, right? Vendetta chunks you with some additional energy over the next couple of seconds, bumps up your auto attacks and your ability damage. So when you do certain rotations of how to get, you know, enough Envenoms into a window, like you're paying attention to that window of time, that power spike. When you cast Feral Spirits, the only cooldown we have baseline, nothing happens. They auto-attack the target and go round, round, round. You see both Wordup and I in the footage behind. We're both running Elemental Spirits, because at least it does something. Which gave feedback points of, well, what if Elemental Spirits, this is just me talking and it's all my armchair dev stuff, but what if Feral Spirits was the baseline with the Elemental buff, the Roll the Wolves, where you got 1 lightning, or 1 fire and a frost, or 1 frost and a fire, or 1 whatever, right? Out of the 3, you get 2 of them. That's the actual baseline. So you have something that interacts with your spells, right? Because it shifts a priority over a little bit. If you get lucky with Stormstrike procs, you get Storm Dog, you get more stormy stuff. If you're in the Lust window, or you have haste procs so going off, you have like a haste on you trinket, you combine it with the dogs, because then if you get Frost Doggies, they just attack for lots of frost damage, and you deal frost damage on hit, the icy touch stuff. And then, of course, you get Fire Dog. That could sync up with windows where you would obviously hold your dog cooldown for if you got lucky with a hot hand proc, or it lines up with your going to a burn phase and you are hoping to get hot hand at the same time. So it leads into some gameplay. And then the talented version gives you the cooldown reduction, so you can use it more often. And it just gives you one of each dog. It always gives you one frost, one lightning, and one fire dog. So no matter what build you've ebbed or flowed into on the way down the talent row, you have always a Storm Strike dog for the Windfury forward, forceful winds kind of reset heavy build. Or for the fire build, if you're running the Searing Assault and Hot Hand, you've got the fire dog always there. Or of course, depending on if you're always going to use it as your major cooldown, if you've got any hasted windows, you've always got a frost dog there. And it's 30 seconds on the reduction on the cooldown, so you've got every 90 seconds, you've got your major cooldown window. And Enhancement now is really all about just churning these micro cooldown windows every 30 seconds, every minute, every 90. And I feel like that would be an impactful rotational sort of baseline or amplified baseline cooldown. Other things like Overcharge, the new Overcharge, it's just the ammo system coming back. We have a potential to waste so much Maelstrom weapon. So why can we have baseline 10 or baseline like 8 or something? And what if the Overcharge talent was that it interacted with the actual Overcharge system? So maybe they're like running an Elemental Blast build or a Stormkeeper build where it allows you to cast at 6 and empower that spell with more damage beyond the fact that it's instant then. And then, of course, if you overcap to say 8 or 10, you have either another spell to follow it up with, which wouldn't be empowered, you have to wait a moment, but you at least have the proc protection to not waste ones when you weave your spells in and out, because it's very possible right now you go from 3 to all of a sudden 7, but you don't know you went to 7 because you just lost 2 procs to the ether. So it's little things like that that are the sticky pain points for Enhancement, because it just feels like we're at a point where, I mean, Feral Druids have probably felt this for a long time, where we're just juggling plates. And you might see it in the background gameplay where sometimes I feel like I don't know what to hit, because there's times where there's a weird decision to be made. I want to AoE, but I have no things to hit, so I'm just hitting Rockbiter. Which Wordup doesn't want Rockbiter to exist. He would rather have like Frost Shock back as the main filler, and then have a talent or two that interacted with Frost Shock. Landslide and Boulder Fist. Landslide's fine, but Boulder Fist is, as Wordup puts it, it's criminally insulting as a way as a talent. It's just not a... It's just awful. Or criminally awful, something along those lines. He said criminally something. That's a really bad talent, because you don't need more of your filler just to do more damage. And it's almost like a trap, one of those noob talents, those noob trap talents. But to not only sit here and jibber jab about Enhancement, because this is a overall catch up, to sort of summarize my thoughts, Restoration Shaman is pretty straightforward. I think it got a little bit extra in the toolkit. It got an extra tank heal. It has a laughable potential for a little bit of extra damage in Searing Totem if numbers get tuned to be something a little bit more. We'll see. I wonder if they still need something else damage-wise. I'm not sure what else they could do, because again, Flame Shock's overall duration was dropped to 18 seconds across the entire class, down from 24 again. This is the 4th time that Flame Shock's duration has been changed, either mid-expansion or going into a new expansion. It's the fourth change in duration. 24 feels so fine, but they obviously do not want super cross-dotting, which is also a weird thing. Again, to bring up Enhancement, this current Hailstorm talent is a joke. It means that Enhancement Shamans can get more Flame Shocks out than Elemental. And we have 0 synergy with it. It's just a dot. Nothing happens. And obviously, Elemental Shaman, it's the sauce to their meatballs. It's their Lava Surge procs. Which leads me to, of course, bring up Elemental Shaman, which I think looks really well so far. It's probably the best tweaked, because Resto didn't really get tweaked. But the decoupling of their AoE and single target, the fulmination charges, be it you like it or not, the seismic thunder with chain lightning into instant earthquakes, or the versatility to just spam cast earthquakes if the situation calls for it and it's like massive AoE and that's the better thing to do. Then there's options there, like the baseline options, because the current version on live is very, very forced into build and spend. Only one thing though. But if you're AoEing, you get that damage funnel of obviously the more targets you hit with chain lightning, the faster you can get to instant chain lightnings. And because chain lightning gives you fulmination stacks, you still get to tunnel or at least feed damage into a priority target. Earth shock isn't the real guaranteed number one thing you are doing, though. It's not the overall payoff for you to actually really aim for. Whereas sauce meatball is the big one, but earth shock still is a funneled ability that you can put into your main target while you're also putting out 2 or 3 flame shocks and the whole weaving of your spells. And then if you're running Master of the Elements, you're weaving in that for bigger earthquakes, most likely in the AoE situation, because you're not going to want to put it into the earth shocks, most likely. But that's too bad. You know, it's a decision to make. Elemental Blast seems still fine. Aftershock and Surge of Power seem a lot of fun. Basically, I just gushed in the entire Elemental video about how I really like Surge of Power, and it's a really fun, interactive talent, spell orientating ability, and to choose which one you're doing. And the way you could actually use Surge of Power with the Aftershock gamble build, because it has 2 separate gambles now on Earthquake and Earth Shock, which also you can combine with Elemental Blast, because Elemental Blast functions with fulmination, whereas Elemental Blast for enhancement just can be instant. That's it. Which I guess, is that enough? But who knows? And then, of course, Echoing Shock, which is probably one of the most fun talents I have tested so far, and maybe one of the most fun for the near future. We have Rogue into Monk coming up so far, and I don't know, Echoing Shock is right good. Whole lot of fun. And if you haven't checked out all the past coverage, it's linked in the channel guide link down below, of course. You can go find that over on my Twitch channel as well. It's just !guide, G-U-I-D-E in chat. It's good stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing more of these. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing how some of these the enhancement stuff gets sorted and hopefully streamlined, or more iteration comes in, because I don't want to sound like vindictive or mean-spirited or a little vile about this. A little bit of a chip on my shoulder, but I hope, and Wordup is more positive about this than I am, but I've been doing this for a long time, right? I hope this isn't just like, here's the Enhancement Shaman rework we couldn't give to you in patch 8.2 or 8.25 or 8.3 in BFA, so here's all this stuff. And there it is. Yeah, we did it. Finger guns. You can't see me because I'm not on camera, but I'm doing really, really, really strong finger guns. I just hope that's not what they do, because there's just decouplings and wasted just holes in the talent tree, I would say more so than we've had in quite some time. There's fun stuff there. It's just that the base of it now has 2 RNG systems, both Maelstrom weapon ammo and Stormbringer. I mean, it never coexisted together before. When we had Maelstrom ammo before, it was just, when it happened, that was the thing you did, right? Stormbringer is the new Legion into BFA system, whereas Maelstrom is the Warlords backwards. So it's a molding of those 2 expansions, and obviously there's going to be a little bit of growing pains or melding pains or things of that nature, and I just think that there's too many buttons, and not many buttons does a fun class make. There's like the golden rule of, like, I would say 3 on the lowest end to make fun of arcane mages and demon hunters, but it works. And then on the high end, there's, I would say, 6 tops. Really? So 4 to 6 is probably way more. Like, I was having a lot of fun on the Rogue today when I had 4.5 buttons. I was like, this, yeah. And then, of course, you switch between situations, which is what sort of Elemental has with their decoupling of their AoE and single target. And Restoration is Restoration Shaman. It's strong. One of the core healers has a huge kit. Has the best ascendance of all 3 Shaman. Can we get Glyph of Ascendance back, please? If we're not going to get it baseline, can we just glyph it when we have it so we can be a watery or fiery or windy, you know, shaman when we have it? It's just Rad Blast maybe for enhancement. Can we just have the cosmetic back of the crazy chain lightning hands? Little things. It's little things. It's a cosmetic forward expansion. I've rattled on long enough. Thank you very much for listening. Description box down below for all of my places on the internet and things. I will see you all, well, on the next stream. And thank you for listening. And I will, yeah. Time to do Subtlety Rogue next. That's what's next. And I'm not looking forward to it. That's, yay.